Good evening, all. I hope you're all doing good. Everything's okay here. I had immunotherapy today that included a weekend chemo session as well. I asked the doctor, and I saw him when I came in at 10 o'clock this morning, why am I having chemo when you said that I'm clean? And he said, we couple it with the immunotherapy to make sure it doesn't come back. So, I feel okay. You know, the first 4 times I had it, it messed me up for about a week. I was sick and, you know, I didn't like it. It wasn't a good experience. But I don't feel that way this time, so, you know, maybe it is good. I have to go through with the program. I can't help it. Once I chose to go that way, I have to finish up. Anyways, I have a video clip here that blew my socks off, but after I saw it, I thought to myself, heck, I already knew this, but I didn't put it together. And I'm sure that you're going to probably feel the same way. Now, this comes from a guy named Vince Everett Ellison. He's a political commentator, but he's much more than that. He's a really good guy. He's funny, he's smart, and he's got his fingers on the pulse of America. And I like the guy a lot. Wait a minute, am I showing infinity screen? Well, anyways, I'm going to show it to you right now, and then we're going to talk about it for a few minutes, and then we're going to get into a little bit of the ether and stuff like that. So I got a good show for you tonight. I hope you enjoy it. And I'm going to play this video for you right now without further ado. Please listen to this. Thank you.
Victor David Hanson had written this book. It was called Mexifornia, like Mexico and California together, Mexifornia. He was talking about how the Democrats are going to use illegal immigration to take over the United States of America. And Dick Lamb was talking about, he was introducing Victor David Hanson, and he gave this talk on if he had a plan to destroy America, this is what he'd do. And you can hear it here.
Who really, really gets it. Again, a liberal Democrat. And he calls it my plan to destroy America. My plan to destroy America. And a hat tip to our partners at FAIR who provided this to me, and this has never been played before. Cut one, go.
I would like to share with you my plan to destroy America. If you think, and some do, that America is too smug, too rich, too self-satisfied, not diverse enough, too white bread, I have this plan. Toynbee, you know, said that all great nations rise and they all fall. And he said, and the autopsy of history is all great nations commit suicide. So here's my plan, 8 parts. Number 1, I'd make it a bilingual, bicultural country. History shows us that no bilingual, bicultural country lives at peace with itself. There's not one, I believe, that doesn't exist with an incredible amount of tension and conflict, if not civil war. My second part of my plan would be to invent something called multiculturalism. This would be 2 parts. Number 1, I would say that all cultures are created equal. It would make no difference and make it impossible to talk about such things as culture. And the second one is that I would really try very hard to make people continue their cultural identity. I would replace the melting pot with the salad bowl. My third part of my plan would be to make the fastest growing demographic group in that country the least educated. I would add a second underclass to the first underclass, unassimilated, undereducated, antagonistic, and then I'd have 50% of them drop out of school, not graduate from high school. The fourth part of my plan would be to get the big foundations to fund, and big business to fund these efforts with lots of money. I would invest in ethnic identity and victimology. I would get them to think about their lack of success was only the fault of the majority. I would start a grievance industry. The fifth part of my plan is I would develop dual citizenship. I would promise people actually divided loyalties, allow them to vote for both Vicente Fox and George Bush. The sixth part, and this is important, I would place all of these subjects off limits. I would make it taboo to talk about, actually, or criticize this whole thing. I would make it come up with a word like heretic used to be 200 years ago. Let's say we'd call it racist. And I would try to accuse anybody of this that would object to my ideas. My seventh part, then, I would make it impossible to enforce our immigration laws. I would develop a mantra, let's call it this, that because immigration has been good in the past for America, it will continue to be good in the future. My eighth and last part, and it's important, is I would censor this book. This man is dangerous. He's on to my plan. Don't read this book.
And he's pointing to our friend Victor Davis Hanson in his book, Mexifornia, where he lays out the case. This is 10 and a half years ago where he gave this speech. And he was right on, wasn't he?
Now, isn't that interesting?
All right. What do you think about that? That doesn't, it's so true. I'm just blown away by it. And we're going to do a chat for a little bit. I got a terrible voice, but I apologize for it, but I got shockwaves on. Looks like Val joined us. What do you guys think about that? What was that thing you said, Shockwave?
Yeah, Val's.
Hey, Val.
Hi.
I just, Shockwave, you said something the other day to me. What was it? Do you want me?
What?
You own, yeah.
About the UN and.
Well, you'll own nothing and be happy, right?
Oh, that's Klaus Schwab from the WEF.
Yeah.
That's you'll own nothing and you'll be happy.
Yeah, I think
that's part of this plan. This 8-part plan. Another part of the plan that is all meant to control, and I just get angry listening to and. I hate talking about this stuff.
I know. I know
it's there, and there's nothing that we can do about it until the majority of the populace see this the way we see it.
Right.
And only then is are things going to change, and the elite going to have to wake up and stop their crap.
Yeah. Well, as bad as Trump is, I mean, he lost me. He went off the rails with me when he said, are we still talking about Epstein? That kind of turned me off. And, once again, I feel bamboozled. But, however, if Harris would have became president, this plan would still be en route. I mean, it would be, still going.
Well, yeah, he threw a wrench into this plan, that's for sure. He
threw a wrench into the plan by securing the border. Yeah, it's he's the whole thing with war. He promised no war, and you're looking at war. That irritates me.
Don't worry about that.
I don't think it's going to happen.
Lisa Page and Strzok and Brennan and all of those people are going to be indicted shortly.
You think so? You think they're really going to do something?
Oh, yeah.
I hope
Here's my thing about the Epstein thing.
Yeah.
I think he's just sick of the media revolving around him being friends with Epstein in the 80s and 90s. early 90s when Epstein didn't even buy his island until 98.
Yeah, I don't think Trump had anything to do with all the skullduggery. But,
Yeah. They keep recycling the same canned crap.
well,
And he's sick of
yeah.
that being questioned every single press conference.
Right, but it's going to be. We have free speech, but now the fact that, he seems to be in the pocket of Benjamin Netanyahu, and that has pissed a lot of his base off. The MAGA movement is fractured because of it. And,
I haven't been keeping up much.
Well, I like to keep up with what's going on. I watch independent stuff. I don't watch mainstream because that's all just a bunch of bullshit. And then the whole there's half of the world that hates Candace Owens and Tucker Carlson with a passion, and they're just telling the truth. I mean, the whole Charlie Kirk thing. I mean, nothing makes sense about that. Someone in Israel searched the killer's name the day before he was killed. Now, that's kind of suspicious looking. If you ask me.
Makes it sound like a hit.
Since Tucker left Fox News, man, he's changed. There's something going on with him. He's turning into a weirdo.
Well, he tells it like he thinks it is. I can disseminate between the weird stuff and the good stuff. But I also listen to Jeffrey Sachs. He's pretty good. And yes, I can't help it. I listen to Candace Owens because, man, she's in so much trouble right now. I hope nothing happens to her because she's got a target on her back. And I'm always into electric universe, you know that. But man cannot live on astronomy alone. So I have to get into other things like history, and mostly ancient history. But I'm also up on current history. But there's we dodged a bullet for now. But this is what the Democratic Party has turned into, Shockwave. They're not the party of John Kennedy anymore, who's my favorite president. But they've changed. When you watch Crockett and AOC, who happens to be a multimillionaire after 6 years in Congress, how does that happen? And all of these other weirdos.
Corruption.
Yeah. They're surrounded by corruption. And that is what gets me, whether it's from Israel or not. We need to be transparent, and I don't know if they can be. That's how bad the corruption is.
I'm just glad to see Pelosi's getting out.
Oh, I know, yeah. Yeah, but should have just put like her daughter or somebody in. It's not going to be. The Democrats need to reform. So do the Republicans. They're not much better.
They're not any better.
No.
We've become too far divided.
Yes.
That neither party represents the majority of the people or the majority of the constituents anymore.
That's right. I think Marjorie Taylor Greene might be the closest one to it. But they've deemed her crazy too. But
Tulsi Gabbard's pretty good.
Tulsi Gabbard, I love her. Yes. I think she's going to be the first woman president.
I hope so.
Yeah. I think she's got it in her. I hope she runs in 28. That whole thing with Trump getting a third term, that's all nonsense. It's in the Constitution. You can't run for 3 terms.
We need to put in the Constitution that they all have term limits.
Exactly.
We can't make careers out of what was meant to be public service.
Yes, but when I saw that video clip, I had to show it because, man, this is our country. And it doesn't matter to me what color or race you are. Illegal immigration is against the law. And they were letting it happen with all these sanctuary cities and all this and, pulling videos off YouTube if you talk about it. I got 2 strikes for hate speech that just talked about the immigration problem. So, I think YouTube has loosened up a little bit, though. I even noticed they had a David Irving video on YouTube. So, it's really kind of lightened up a little bit, and I applaud them for that. I hope they continue, because
Yeah.
Rumble is starting to outdo them. And I want to start maybe doing some live streams over on Rumble, because you can talk more, you can do more, But since I've been dealing with this damn cancer, I haven't really done much of anything. I've tried to put a few videos out here and there, but I'm on the road to recovery, and even though my voice sounds like crap, I still got it in me to want to try to bring forth a product. My videos,
You just don't worry about your voice. I've told you before, you sound better and better every time I talk to you.
do I? Because to me, it doesn't.
You hear your voice every day. I don't.
Yeah. Well, good. Good. I've been through hell and back.
Understandable.
And I lost 70 pounds. It's just terrible. But I'm on the other side now, and I just have to continue to just keep.
It's gonna take time, like I told you, Greg. It's just gonna take time.
Yeah.
Just
Yep.
let it take time. Keep, using your voice and working your
Stay the
tongue.
course.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
It'll come back. Maybe not like 100%, but it'll come back.
I hope so.
Stay the course. If they decide they want to stretch your throat
Yeah.
to give a little more room,
Yeah. They're going to.
my grandpa did great when they had to do his. It
Yeah.
actually made him a lot better.
Yeah, I'm going to have it done. I had
Yeah.
swallowing issues.
My grandpa had to have it done twice from esophageal cancer.
Oh, I heard that's fatal. He survived?
Yeah. Yeah, another
Wow.
25, 30 years.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, they've come a long way.
They took his entire esophagus out, save for about 2 inches.
Ooh.
And his stomach sat vertically between his lungs.
Yeah, mine spread to my lungs. I waited that long. But the tumor was under control. It was small. It was smaller than an egg. And I was trying to treat it holistically. Ivermectin, fenbendazole, I tried it all. And all of a sudden I started to grow a second head. And that's when I freaked out and I had to go to the hospital. And the doctor told me I wouldn't have lived another month if I wouldn't have came in. So.
Well, thankfully, you came around and realized that small doesn't mean non-invasive.
No, it spread to my lungs, and I was really
Exactly.
worried. They gave me a 10% chance.
Nobody has an expiration date, and I hate when they do that.
I know. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it takes the wind out of your sails to fight.
Yes. That's the biggest part, is the mental battle.
Takes away your
son-
hope.
My son Greg is right there with me every step of the way. He will not let me fill my head with negativism.
I love your son.
I suffer from anxiety. I get panic attacks, and they won't give me much medicine for it. No, you don't need Xanax. I'm like, yes, I do. They gave it to me, but very little. So I take it when I go to bed. It helps, but it helps me sleep. But I get about 5 or 6 hours sleep a night.
Well,
I
talking
understand.
about sleep, I gotta go.
Yeah.
'cause
Well, we're gonna wrap it up.
falling asleep.
I don't want to make this about me. I just wanted
I'll
to
talk
show,
to you more, Greg. You can
Okay.
always call me.
All right. I wanted everybody to see this because I deemed it very important for
Absolutely.
people to know.
Yeah, just play a couple of other videos.
Yeah,
and
we're gonna talk. We're gonna
keep the
talk
streaming
about
going on.
Brett. When I talked to Brett, I got the idea to show my video about the ether. Now, when I first started making videos, I'm a songwriter. I like to create. I didn't know people don't like intros. So, there's a music intro to it. Please just get past it. I don't do it anymore. But, it's a good video. It was written by a guy named Whitaker in 1903. And it was Studies in Electromagnetism. And I want to read more from that book. There's a lot of good stuff, but, you know, I just wanted to share this video.
You should also do some music shows too, Greg.
You think
like you
so?
used to. Yeah, man.
I agree.
Okay.
Some of us do like the music.
Throw some music in there, and then show a video, and then throw some more music in. I mean, I enjoyed it.
Okay.
Other people, I'm sure, loved it too.
Yeah, I enjoyed the music myself, so I don't see a problem for those that don't enjoy music. They can watch after the show and skip the music.
Yeah.
And
yeah,
just
your music
watch.
usually comes with flashy videos and all of that. Yeah, sorry, Val.
I know. I like
you
that.
do you. Stay true to you.
Yeah, man.
Okay. Well, thank you, guys. I love you, man.
Love you.
Same here, bro.
All right.
Anyways, I'm going to split. Have a good night, everybody.
All right. We'll see you around.
Have a good night,
We'll
Chuck.
see you around. I'll be back after a video or two if you want to stick around, Val.
I will.
Okay. I'll see you there. All right, folks. We're going to get into this video right here about the Aether. And there might be a little Walt Thornhill coming up, too. Because I love Walt Thornhill. He's one of my heroes. All right, here we go.
Okay, so include the electric. The history of this problem may be traced back continuously to the earlier half of the 17th century. It first emerged clearly in that reconstruction of ideas regarding the physical universe, which was affected by René Descartes. So they've been screwing up a lot longer than just the last 100 years. Descartes was born in 1596, allegedly, the son of Joachim Descartes, counselor at the Parliament of Brittany. As a young man, he followed the profession of arms and served in the campaigns of Maurice and Nassau. The emperor, in his 24th year, brought a profound crisis, apparently not unlike those which have been recorded of many religious leaders, and he resolved to devote himself thenceforth to the study of philosophy, the age which preceded the birth of Descartes and that in which he lived, were marked by events which greatly altered the prevalent conceptions of the world. The discovery of America, the circumnavigation of the globe by Drake, the overthrow of the Ptolemaic system of astronomy, which we have another one in place now, and the invention of the telescope, all helped to loosen the old foundations and to make plain the need for a new structure. Why couldn't they think to include the electric force in it then? It was this that Descartes set himself to erect. His aim was the most ambitious. Well, after all, it was a Catholic priest who came up with the Big Bang, George Lemay, something to that effect, that can be conceived. It was nothing less than to create from the beginning a complete system of human knowledge. Of such a system, the basis must necessarily be metaphysical. And this part of Descartes' work is that by which he is most widely known. But his efforts were also largely devoted to the mechanical explanation of nature, which indeed he regarded as one of the chief ends of philosophy. The general character of his writings may be illustrated by a comparison to those of his most celebrated contemporary. Bacon clearly defined the end to be sought for and laid down the method by which it was to be attained, then recognized that to discover all the laws of nature is a task beyond the powers of one man or one generation. He left to posterity the work of filling in the framework which he had designed. Descartes, on the other hand, desired to leave as little as possible for his successors to do. His was a theory of the universe, worked out as far as possible in every detail. It is, however, impossible to derive such a theory inductively unless you are at sufficient observational data on which to base the induction. And as such, data were not available in the age of Descartes. He was compelled to deduce phenomena from preconceived principles and causes after the fashion of the older philosophers. To the inherent weakness of this method may be traced the errors that at last brought his scheme to ruin. The contrast between the systems of Bacon and Descartes is not unlike that between the Roman Republic and the Empire of Alexander. In the one case, we have a career of aggrandizement pursued with patience for centuries. In the other, a growth of fungus-like rapidity, a speedy dissolution, and an immense influence long exerted by the disunited fragments. The grandeur of Descartes' plan and the boldness of its execution stimulated scientific thought to a degree before unparalleled, and it was largely from its ruins that later philosophers constructed those more valid theories which have endured to our own time. Descartes regarded the world as an immense machine of operating by the motion and pressure of matter. "Give me matter and motion," he cried, "and I will construct the universe." The peculiarity which distinguished his system from that which afterwards sprang from its decay was the rejection of all forms of action at a distance. He assumed that force cannot be communicated except by actual pressure or impact. By this assumption, he was compelled to provide an explicit mechanism in order to account for each of the known forces of nature, a task evidently much more difficult than that which lies before those who are willing to admit action at a distance as an ultimate property of matter. Since the sun interacts with the planets in sending them light and heat and influencing their motions, it followed from Descartes' principle that interplanetary space must be a plenum, occupied by matter, imperceptible to the touch, but capable of serving as the vehicle of force and light. This conclusion in turn determined the view which he adopted on the all-important question of the nature of matter. According to Descartes' theory, the sun is the center of an immense vortex formed of the first or subtlest kind of matter. The vehicle of light in interplanetary space is matter of the second kind or element, composed of closely packed assemblage of globules whose size is intermediate between that of the vortex matter and that of ponderable matter. All space is permeated by an elastic medium, or ether, which is capable of propagating vibrations in the same way as the air propagates the vibrations of sound, but with far greater velocity. The ether pervades the pores of all material bodies and is the cause of their cohesion. Its density varies from one body to another, being greatest in free interplanetary spaces. It is not necessarily a single uniform substance, But just as air contains aqueons, vapor, so the ether may contain various ethereal spirits, adapted to produce the phenomena of electricity, magnetism, and gravitation. Of course, electricity and magnetism equal gravitation, I assume. They have to have something to do with it. The vibrations of the ether cannot, for the reasons already mentioned, be supposed in themselves to constitute light. Light is therefore taken to be something of a different kind, propagated from lucid bodies. They that will may suppose it
aggregate,
an aggregate of various
peripatetic
qualities. Others may suppose it multitudes of unimaginable small and swift corpuscles of various sizes, springing from shining bodies at great distance, one after another, but yet without any sensible interval of time, and continually urged forward by a principle of motion, which in the beginning accelerates them, till the resistance of the ethereal medium equals the force of that principle, much after the manner that bodies let fall in water are accelerated till the resistance of the water equals the force of gravity. But they that like not this may suppose light any other corporal emanation, or any impulse or motion of any other medium or ethereal spirit, diffused through the main body of ether, or what else they can imagine proper for this purpose. To avoid dispute, and make this hypothesis general, let every man here take his fancy. Only whatever light may be, I suppose it consists of rays differing from one another in contingent circumstances, as bigness, form, or vigor. In truth of Hooke's hypothesis, that light is essentially a form of motion, seemed to Huygens to be proved by the effects observed with burning glasses. For in combustion induced at the focus of the glass, the molecules of bodies are disassociated, which, as he remarked, must be taken as a certain sign of motion. If, in conformity to the Celestian philosophy, we seek the cause of all natural phenomena in purely mechanical actions, much to their chagrin, if they just would have had the brains to bring in electromagnetism. The question then arises as to whether the motion is that of a medium, as is supposed in Hooke's theory, or whether it may be compared rather to that of a flight of arrows. As in the corpuscular theory, Huygens decided that the former alternative is the only tenable one, since beams of light proceeding in directions inclined to each other do not interfere with each other in any way. Moreover, it had previously been shown by Torricelli that light is transmitted as readily through a vacuum as through air, and from this Huygens inferred that the medium or ether in which the propagation takes place must penetrate all matter and be present even in all so-called vacua.
Vacua.
Got it right. Hooke's theory of color was completely overthrown within a few years of its publication by one of the earliest discoveries of Isaac Newton. Newton, who was elected a Fellow of Trinity College, Cambridge, he was also very religious in the church. Not many know that. In 1667, I believe he was a canon in the Catholic Church, had in the beginning of 1666, crazy year, obtained a triangular prism to try therewith the celebrated phenomena of color. For this purpose, having darkened my chamber and made a small hole in my window shuts to let in a convenient quantity of the sun's light, I placed my prism at his entrance, that it might be thereby refracted to the opposite wall. It was at first a very pleasing divertisement to view the vivid and intense colors produced thereby, but after a while applying myself to consider them more circumspectly, I became surprised to see them in an oblong form, which, according to received laws of refraction, I expected should have been circular. The length of the colored spectrum was, in fact, about 5 times as great as its breadth. The puzzling fact he set himself to study, and after more experiments, the true explanation was discovered. Namely, the ordinary white light is really a mixture of rays of every variety of color, and that the elongation of the spectrum is due to the difference in the refractive power of the glass for these different rays. Talking about a prism. Amidst all these, he tells us, I was forced from Cambridge by the intervening plague. This was in 1666, and his memoir on the subject was not presented to the Royal Society until 5 years later. In it, he propounds a theory of color directly opposed to that of Hooke. Colors, he says, are not qualifications of light derived from refractions or reflections of natural bodies, as 'tis generally believed, but original and connate properties, which in diverse rays are diverse. Some rays are disposed to exhibit a red color and no other, some a yellow and no other, some a green and no other, and so of the rest. Nor are they only rays proper and particular to the more eminent colors, but even to all their intermediate gradations. The publication of the new theory by Newton gave rise to an acute controversy. As might have been expected, Hooke, the foremost among the opponents, and led the attack with some degree of asperity. When it is remembered that at this time Newton was at the outset of his career, while Hooke was an older man with an established reputation, and why he couldn't have just been friendly instead of treating him like he's threatening, he made it come true just by being paranoid about it. While Hooke was an older man with an established reputation, such harshness appears particularly ungenerous. And it is likely that the unpleasant consequences which followed the announcement of his first great discovery had much to do with the reluctance which Newton ever afterward showed to publish his results to the world. Yeah, once bitten, twice shy. Well, we only for the one. In the course of the discussion, Newton found occasion to explain more fully the views which he entertained regarding the nature of light. Hooke charged him with holding the doctrine that light is a material substance. Now Newton had, as a matter of fact, a great dislike of the more imaginative kind of hypothesis. He altogether renounced the attempt to construct the universe from its foundations after the fashion of Descartes, and aspired to nothing more than a formulation of the laws which directly govern the actual phenomenon. His theory of gravitation, for example, is strictly an expression of the results of observation and involves no hypothesis as to the cause of the attraction which subsists between ponderable bodies, and his own desire in regard to optics was to present a theory free from speculation as to the hidden mechanism of light. Accordingly, in reply to Hooke's criticism, he protested that his views on color were in no way bound up with any particular conception of the ultimate nature of optical processes. He found out that in every light ray there is every color in the rainbow by putting it in a prism. Newton was, however, to carry out his plan of connecting together the phenomena of light into a coherent and well-reasoned whole without having recourse to hypothesis. Hypothesis of Hooke that light consists in vibrations of an ether he rejected for reasons which at that time were perfectly cogent, and which indeed were not successfully refuted over a century. One of these was the incompetence of the wave theory to account for the rectilinear propagation of light, and another was its inability to embrace the facts, discovered, as we shall see, by Huygens, and first intercepted correctly by Newton himself, of polarization. On the whole, he seems to have favored a scheme of which the following may have taken. All space is permeated by an elastic medium, or ether, which is capable of propagating vibrations in the same way as the air propagates the vibrations of sound, but with far greater velocity. This ether pervades the pores of all material bodies and is the cause of their cohesion. Its density varies from one body to another, being greatest in the free interplanetary spaces. In 1807, Hans Christian Ørsted, 1777 to 1851, professor of natural philosophy in Copenhagen, announced his intention of examining the action of electricity on the magnetic needle. But it was not for some years that his hopes were realized. If one of his pupils is to be believed, he was a man of genius, but a very unhappy experiment. He could not manipulate instruments. He must always have an assistant with auditors who had easy hands to arrange the experiment. During a course of lectures, which he delivered in the winter of 1819-1820 on electricity, galvanism, and magnetism, the idea occurred to him that the changes observed with the compass needle during a thunderstorm might give the clue to the effect of which he was in search, and this led him to think that the experiment should be tried with the galvanic circuit closed instead of open, and to inquire whether any effect is produced on a magnetic needle when an electric current is passed through a neighboring wire. At first, he placed the wire at right angles to the needle, but observed no result. After the end of a lecture in which this negative experiment had been shown, the idea occurred to him to place the wire parallel to the needle. On trying it, a pronounced deflection was observed, and the relation between magnetism and the electric current was discovered. After confirmatory experiments with more powerful apparatus, the public announcement was made in July 1820. The next step came from André Marie Ampère, who at the meeting of the Academy on September 18th, exactly a week after the news of Ørsted's first discovery had arrived, showed that two parallel wires carrying currents attract each other if the currents are in the same direction, and repel each other if the currents are in opposite direction. The reluctance, which some philosophers felt, to filling all space with an elastic fluid, the ether, he met with an argument which strangely foreshadows the electric theory of light, that a medium resembling in many properties that which has been denominated ether does really exist, is undeniably proved by the phenomena of electricity. I would say that would be true. Wouldn't have anything to travel in. The rapid transmission of the electrical shock shows that the electric medium is possessed with an elasticity as great as is necessary to be supposed for the propagation of light. Whether the electric ether is to be considered the same with the luminous ether, if such fluid exists, may perhaps at some future time be discovered by experiment. Hitherto, I have not been able to observe that the refractive power of a fluid undergoes any change by electricity. That ether is part of that unseen world that I've talked about. The electric theory of light, it is known now that light is an electromagnetic wave. Yeah, just about everything is electric. I don't know of anything that isn't. Think of it. Introduction to the Electric Cosmos. Don Scott. What is wrong with present-day accepted astrophysics? It is not scientific. In today's world, many people characterize themselves as being scientists. Only those who always carefully follow the scientific method are deserving of that title. Modern establishment astrophysics fails the test in several ways. The empirical scientific method. Scientists are distinguishable from artists, poets, musicians, and others in that they use what is known as the scientific method. It is not that inspiration or the muse is not valuable in science. It is, but it is not the starting point of what we call science. In the process, called the scientific method, a true scientist will observe nature carefully, record what is seen. 2. Seek patterns in the observed data, put numbers on the data, fit equations to those numbers. 3. Generalize those equations into a world description of the process. This is a hypothesis. 4. Carry out experiments and or gather independent data to see how well the hypothesis predicts future observations and results. This is called closing the loop on your hypothesis. Reject or modify the hypothesis if the experiment show it falls short of success in these predictions. Only after the results of several experiments have been successfully predicted by the hypothesis can it be called a theory. If two different theories predict a given phenomenon equally well, the simpler theory is probably the best one. This principle is called Occam's razor. Theories can never be proven to be correct. Some other mechanism entirely may be the cause of the observed data. But theories can be disproved if they fail to predict the outcomes of additional experiments. Such theories are termed to be falsified. Sometimes the scientific method, as described above, is called the empirical method, the deductive method. As an alternative to the empirical method, there is a method of deriving theories from assumed generalizations about the universe. This is called the deductive method. In this process, one starts with a law of nature, or obviously correct generalization about the way things work, and deduces, reasons out, derives its consequences in detail. A hypothesis arrived at via this method is promoted to the status of being a theory if a large enough body of experts accept it. Thus, in this method, a vote of experts determines if the theory is correct. Once such a theory has been accepted, it is not easily rejected in the light of conflicting evidence. It is, however, often modified, made more complex, and unfortunately, new data is often selectively chosen to support it. The selection and publication of only the data that support the accepted theory is expedited by the peer review system. If the experts who have accepted a given theory control both the funding of future research and also what gets published, there is little chance for conflicting viewpoints to develop. Pseudoscience. Some hypotheses, when presented by august, well-established scientists, are given credence without anyone questioning whether the hypothesis has been developed using the scientific method. Yet, in most cases, it is not difficult to check whether or not scientific method has been used correctly. For example, consider the hypothesis that there are gnomes in my garden that always make themselves invisible when anyone tries to observe them. Clearly, no conceivable experiment or observation could falsify that statement. This is evidence the hypothesis comes from a pseudoscientific source. Legitimate theories must be falsifiable. The problem forced by modern astronomy is that experiments are not possible because the stars are light years away. We cannot hope to be able to go there and perform experiments on them. Until relatively recent, even the planets were out of reach. Thus, cosmologists never get to complete the scientific method. We cannot close the loop in cosmology, but if we cannot test our hypotheses, how can we reject or modify them? The answer, of course, is that astrophysicists, more than those in any other branch of science, must be exceedingly careful to continually examine their hypotheses in the light of any new data. It is the contention of the author of these pages that they have not been doing this. Einstein was a purely theoretical physicist. He never went near a physics lab. He conducted only Gedankenexperimenten, thought experiments, in order to arrive at his general theory of relativity, GR. This is a perfect example of the deductive method at work. Its use is exceptionally dangerous in an area like cosmology, wherein it is difficult to falsify any theory. Now that GR theory is accepted by establishment astrophysics, any new data, such as photographs of the astronomical object known as the Einstein cross, are discussed only within the framework of this complicated theory. The images of the 4 small objects in the Einstein cross, when looked at only from this viewpoint, are considered to be supporting evidence for the GR theory. However, they could just as well be interpreted as being evidence supporting a much simpler cosmological theory. Evidence contradictory to the accepted Big Bang theory, such as images of connections between objects that have widely different redshift values, are dismissed as being mirages. False assumptions in astrophysics. Most of today's accepted astronomy cosmology is a set of deductively arrived at hypotheses precariously based on 2 false assumptions. 1. Electrical fields, currents, and plasma discharges are not important in space. Only gravitational and magnetic fields are important. 2. If the light from an object exhibits redshift, the object must be speeding away from us, and its distance from us is directly proportional to that speed. Both of these assumptions are demonstrably wrong, and they have been, and continue to be, contradicted by actual observations of the sky. Those observations tell us that the universe is highly electrical in nature, and 2, redshift is more a measure of an object's youth than its velocity. The continued refusal of astrophysicists to re-examine their hypotheses in light of these new observations is the focus of these pages. The continued refusal of astrophysics to re-examine their hypotheses in light of these new observations is the focus of these pages. Invisible entities invented to patch up failing theories. The theories that have sprung from these faulty, overcomplicated mathematical models, I would say monstrosities, have given birth to such arcane notions as curved space, neutron stars, WIMPs, and now WIMPzillas, machos, several different types of black holes, superluminal jets, dark energy, and magnetic field lines that pile up, merge, and reconnect. All of these inventions are fictions put forth by astrophysics in desperate efforts to defend their theories when faced with contradicting observations. None have ever been observed or photographed. Many of them are demonstrably impossible. But their existence is repeatedly invoked to explain new observations and measurements that contradict the enshrined theories of modern astronomy without resorting to the use of electrical principles. We continually hear statements such as, "There must be a black hole at the center of the galaxy. Otherwise, we cannot explain its level of energy output. There must be invisible dark matter in the galaxy. Otherwise, we cannot explain how it rotates the way it does. 99% of the universe is made up of dark energy. Otherwise, the Big Bang theory is falsified. Pulsars must be made of strange matter. Otherwise, we might have to look for an electrical explanation." We are also asked to believe that 2 objects, like galaxy NGC 4319 and its companion Markarian 205, are not connected together, even though we have photographs of the connection. So we are told not to believe in things that we can see, but that we should believe in the existence of the magic entities that their theories require, even though we cannot see or measure them. Astrophysics denigrate outsiders, then quietly adapt their new ideas. There have been several instances in the past when the astronomical mainstream has long rejected the idea that is later accepted. There is usually no public disgrace for the in-group who were on the wrong side of the issue. When, after being viciously denigrated, the validity of a new idea becomes inescapably obvious. A few years go by, and then we quietly hear, "Well, everyone has known for a long time that the new idea, was always true." Absolutely. An example of this is Hans Alfvén's discovery of plasma waves. This relatively recently discovered property of plasmas is now being wrongly used by astrophysics to explain away all sorts of what is for them enigmatic phenomena, such as the temperature inversion in the sun's lower corona. The future. In a few years, perhaps we will hear, "Well, everyone has known for a long time that quasars are not extremely distant, and redshift is more a measurement of youth of an object than its recessional velocity and distance. No one said for sure there ever was a Big Bang. It was just another false theory. Everyone has known for a long time that electric currents flowing in plasmas produce many of the mysterious observed solar and cosmic phenomena, and we will not hear of machos, WIMPs, neutronium, dark energy, and broken magnetic field lines from any serious scientist ever again. Time will tell. Will the founders of the electric plasma universe theory be acknowledged as having been the pathfinders they are, or will lesser men quietly adopt these ideas without giving credit to their originators, and then claim them to be well-known? This website. The following pages discuss some of the people, observations, and ideas that challenge the false assumptions that mainstream science refuses to re-examine. When you read them, remember that any single unanswered challenge of this sort is enough to bring down the pseudo-scientific magic show that modern astronomy cosmology has become, like a house of cards. Don Scott.
Well said, Don.
To give a summary of my interest and position in the debate about the Saturnian configuration, I was one of the early science undergraduates in the late 50s who had read Velikovsky's works before in the halls of academia. To my surprise and profound disillusionment with quote-unquote experts, I soon discovered that this was not so. I then began to do what Dave has done and looked for further evidence, working on my own. So far as I know, I was the only science undergraduate who haunted the anthropology section of the library bookshelves. It was enough to convince me that there was a major case to be explored for a recent rearrangement of the solar system. I did not pursue the mytho-historical threads since my first love is astronomy, but I have applied the same principles in that field that Dave has done in his work. That is, pattern recognition and matching. The results have been very encouraging and interesting. I should state my prejudices concerning the present state of science. I would characterize the scientific age as being the age of Homo sapien ignoramus. To be specific about our ignorance in the areas most likely to affect the Saturnian configuration, I would list the following. Gravity. Einstein, with his geometric description of gravity, has held back understanding by the better part of a century. The most promising work in explaining gravity is being done by a handful of classical physicists who see it as a minute imbalance in electrostatic forces associated with fundamental particles. The recent announcement of the accidental discovery of gravitational shielding by a rotating superconductor seems congruent with the classical approach. It certainly could not be predicted from the current metaphysics of gravity theory. Electrical discharges. This is crucial. We do not understand what causes earthly lightning, so we are unlikely to acknowledge plasma discharges in space. The little plasma physics that astronomers are taught is flawed. The plasmas are electrically neutral and superconducting. They trap magnetic fields. So apart from gravity, magnetism is the only other force we hear about. We are told that energetic events on the sun are due to magnetic reconnection, whatever that means. The strongest force, barring nuclear, electrical, is never mentioned. We find it easy on Earth to generate X-rays using electric discharge, but astronomers insist on nature doing it the hard way in space. It is also not generally known that electrical discharges are very efficient at removing material against gravity and dumping it into space or onto another nearby object. Stars. We do not understand what makes them tick. As Ralph Jurgen said in the 70s, practically every feature of our sun has no business being there if it is purely a thermonuclear engine radiating into space. Magnetic fields do not occur without an associated electric current. The sun is essentially an extended conducting plasma subject to electric stress. The phenomenon we call the sun is purely a ball of lightning. That the Earth and other planets intercept some of the galactic plasma discharge is shown by the recent discovery of diffuse stratospheric discharges, sprites, X-rays, and gamma rays above earthly storms. This is a precise analog of the corona, X-rays, chromospheric glow discharge, and photospheric lightning. Granulations are the tops of the discharges on the sun. The umbra of a sunspot gives us a glimpse of the true temperature of the body of the sun. As a result of this realization, it follows that the conventional stellar evolutionary story is pure fiction. Stars are what they are because of their environment. Their variability is caused by their environment, not their internal workings. This explains the speed with which some stars change their characteristics. Heavy elements are not built up slowly in supernovae, but at the surface of all stars, in the non-thermal compression and acceleration of plasma discharges, granulations. Hence, nucleosynthesis and what little neutrino production there is fall as the sunspot number increases. The differential rotation of the sun, its magnetic field, and the sunspot cycle are all influenced by the sun's passage across large Birkeland currents, flowing along and defining the arms of our galaxy. Planet formation. The Laplacian theory and its variants are garbage. The Hubble Space Telescope has shown that in regions of star formation, large bodies are being shot out as if from a gun, which is peculiar if gravity is the operative force. Once again, plasma discharges provide a mechanism which can simply explain this. The view is that diffuse hydrogen and dust is efficiently scavenged and compressed by the well-known magnetic pinch effect of an electric current flowing along the arms of a galaxy. At some point, gravity takes over and stellar objects are formed. Beyond a certain size, protostars become electrically unstable in fission, spitting out some of the core and giving rise to one or more companions. So I still think that the Herbig-Haro objects might have something to do with the formation of planets as well. So there seems to be more than one way for a planet to be made. But when we're looking at planets, it's very possible that we could be looking at the core of a star, or at least a portion of it. That's interesting. This explains the predilection for stars to be found in pairs or multiples. Got that right. Not all the matter ejected from the core of a protostar may coalesce into a companion star. It may be in the form of one or a number of gas giants. The recent discovery of a Jupiter-like body orbiting very close to a nearby star argues strongly for this model and against the standard theory. A gas giant, in turn, due to either internal or external electrical disturbance, may fission, spitting out its core to give rise to the highly condensed planets, moons, asteroids, comets, etc. Cosmology. All of the above gives rise to the conviction that cosmology should be in the hands of the plasma physics experimenters, not the theorists. It is ironic that they have been chasing the holy grail of fusion power, just like the sun, when that is patently wrong. Interestingly, a recent breakthrough in fusion energy research came about in my hometown, Canberra. When the researchers configured their plasma discharge in the form of a Birkeling current ring, a precise analog of that flowing along the arms of our galaxy. But astronomers will continue to be surprised by results pouring in from space probes when their fundamental paradigms rest on Newtonian and billiard ball physics. The current paradigm has no predictive power whatsoever. The book The Big Bang Never Happened by Eric J. Lerner is a pointer to the cosmology of the 21st century. So what are the patterns that apply from all of this to the Saturnian configuration, SC? The following are some ideas. 1. The core discharge mechanism of planet formation is a plausible way to generate the SC, a string of objects with the largest near the middle. It's Saturnian configuration, SC. 2. The reliance on the degree of electrical stress in the enveloping plasma for the characteristics of the larger bodies enclosed in that plasma could see rapid changes occur, even the disruption of one of the stellar or gas giant objects. It could certainly involve jets of material being emitted by such bodies and forming a diffuse cloud enveloping the polar configuration. It could also be the destabilizing influence which finally breaks it up. 3. As seen in the high-speed objects shooting out of the Orion Nebula, plasma discharges take place in the core of a star, or gas giant, can result in considerable acceleration of the resultant debris. This may provide some of the source of the energy required to position Jupiter and Saturn much further out in our solar system. The redistribution of charge amongst objects in the solar radial field also requires that their orbits will change. 4. Charged bodies orbiting eccentrically in a radioelectric field around the Sun will dissipate energy through electromagnetic induction, heating, in such a way as to quickly spiral into a circular orbit. For any object with a high eccentricity, electrical breakdown will occur within its Langmuir sheath, and cometary discharge phenomena will be seen, regardless of its size. Venus. 5. If gravity is essentially an electrostatic phenomenon, the unusual environment of the Saturnian configuration could be expected to have caused a difference in the perceived gravity at the surface of the Earth. It is conceivable that the electric stress within the plasma sheath enclosing the SC was less than that which the Earth endures in its current solar environment. This would result in an effective lower gravity. The breakup of the SC would have caused a sudden change. An interesting sidelight to this idea is that the apparent very low density of Saturn may be due to the use of a universal gravitational constant in the determination. There may be no such thing. Measurements of G in laboratories on Earth don't seem to agree. In Saturn's electrical environment, we may have shared an apparent low gravity. 6. Various odd phenomena associated with plasma discharges would have been observed from Earth and should appear in ancient depictions of the SC. These include helical, serpentine glows surrounding a central column, or twined rope-like around each other. These would be representations of Birkeland currents flowing between planets enveloped in the same plasma sheath. The number of strands may have varied and given rise to the depictions of Venus with different numbers of radians. We should also look at the photographs from deep space of exploding stars for clues to the imagery, since they are electric discharge phenomena writ large. 1. They could possibly look like rings around the column, or a series of flared skirts. Another effect is seen in discharge tubes filled with low-pressure gas, where a series of light and dark bands are formed transverse to the discharge axis. This might give rise to a kind of stairway to heaven or ziggurat appearance. Then there is the self-contained plasmoid, a corkscrew within an overall football shape, which forms the interplanetary equivalent of lightning and appears to have been depicted as Zeus' thunderbolt. I have looked in some detail at chondritic meteorites, which I expect to be leftovers from a planetary discharge event. They show all the characteristics to be expected of material that has been subjected to flash heating, acceleration, collision, and ion implantation in a spatially restricted compressed gas stream, together with isotopic modification by enhanced radiation, followed by sudden cooling, all the symptoms of a plasma discharge. I predicted that the features of the enigmatic chondrule shells could be reproduced in the lab in a plasma oven. A planetary discharge is a very effective way for Martian meteorites to have been created. Very strong evidence for planetary electrical scarring comes from the Magellan orbiter images of Venus. Also, the Jovian moon Europa was presumably a part of the Saturnian configuration and would also have been subject to electrical scarring. I predict that when close-ups of Europa are available in December, the so-called cracks in the ice will be found to be electric discharge channels with the raised levees on either side of the dark cross-section caused by discharge modification of the excavated material, in the manner of the green glass beads formed from the melted soil excavated by an electric discharge along the lunar rails. The cracks on Europa show no lateral displacement where they intersect, though displacement would be expected if they were due to shifting ice. Discharge channels will throw material from the younger channel into the older where they intersect. Cracks should not show this characteristic. After that, I need a long, cold Foster. Wall Thornhill. It is the thunderbolt that steers the universe. Heraclitus, circa 500 BC. Lightning of the Gods by THORNHILL. This begins a series of articles by THORNHILL on the electrical character of stars and planets. Heraclitus, 2,500 years ago, was closer to the truth than modern astronomers. In years to come, people will look back on the present era with incredulity. How could we have been so blind? Why did we regard the universe as electrically sterile, when the evidence that it was not was staring us in the face? In answering these questions, I will show how badly science suffers from paradigm paralysis. Breaking free from old paradigms allows amazing connections to be forged between disciplines presently thought to have nothing in common. Who would have thought that mythology could illuminate plasma physics and celestial dynamics and vice versa? This must be the hallmark of correct paradigms. No data can be ignored or discredited when searching for the truth. Every piece must fit the puzzle. Some of the results are astounding on first meeting. For example, that our sun and all stars are giant balls of lightning, but so obvious and simple when the evidence is presented. That evidence comes from the totality of human experience of phenomena in the skies, spanning prehistoric cave paintings to modern space probes. This is as it must be. According to David Talbot's meticulous research spanning 25 years, the Saturnian configuration was a spectacular arrangement of looming planets in Earth's prehistoric sky, universally remembered and depicted by the ancients. The appearance of that sky beggars even the modern imagination, which has been conditioned to the weirdness of phenomena seen in deep space. Since shortly after their assumed creation 4 or 5 billion years ago, the planets are believed to have moved like clockwork along the separate orbits. Yet it is well known among astronomers that Newton's law of gravity, when applied to more than 2 orbiting bodies, leads in a relatively short time to chaotic motion. How can the solar system have remained in its apparent stable configuration for the 5 eons required by current theories of solar system evolution? And why, if the planets and moons were formed from the same primordial cloud of gas and dust, are they such a fruit salad of physical characteristics, axial tilts, rotation rates, and orbits? Why do many of the moons show sharp hemispherical differences? What really caused the strange, pristine scars seen on the inner planets and moons? How is it that many of these scars are of such colossal size? In several cases, we see smaller moons, craters so large that the moons should have been pulverized by the impact. Yet, or if indeed the craters were formed by impacting bodies, the ad hoc nature of most expert answers to these questions prompts skepticism of the current paradigm. It seems much too easy to dismiss the Saturnian configuration of planets as science fiction. Astronomers may reassure themselves and us that such an arrangement of planets is impossible. But in doing so, there is no acknowledgement of the alien sky, depicted with remarkable specificity and consistency by ancient peoples around the world. Consequently, many loose ends in other disciplines are left dangling. This is characteristic of modern scientific knowledge. It has been left to a few qualified people with more imagination to show that there is a stable dynamical system of planets conforming to the Saturnian configuration. But it raises the additional question: if the solar system has been so drastically reordered since prehistoric times, how is it that it shows no sign of it now? I will show that by scaling up electrical effects seen on Earth and in the laboratory, I can provide stunning support for the ancient imagery of a different sky and hence the likelihood that planets and moons did move in close proximity in the recent past, as proposed by David Towlett's model. An electric universe model provides a simple mechanism for reordering a chaotic planetary system in a very short time and maintaining that stability. It has other startling consequences which confirm that science fiction writers are the best predictors of the future. My approach to the problem has been like Talbot's, using pattern matching, but converging from the physical sciences rather than the humanities. It is a lesson we both learned early from Immanuel Velikovsky. It has given amazing results for the synthesis of a new cosmology and history of the human race. It provides the first glimpse of the interdisciplinary knowledge of the third millennium. So what do I mean by an electric universe? Astronomical theory presents gravity and magnetism as the only forces participating in the mechanism of the universe. This may seem a very strange attitude when it is known that magnetism requires electrical currents to flow. But I think it highlights our mistaken models of the material world and our failure to discern the interconnections of seemingly separate parts. I will show that a re-examination of basic physics points to an intimate connection between the electrical force and magnetism and gravity. The result is a more holistic, interconnected view of the universe and its interactions, from the subatomic level on up through living beings to the planets, stars, and great streaming galaxies. The following news items were submitted by Ian Tressman from the New Scientist, August 2nd, 97. Twist of Fate points to an intimate connection between the electrical force and magnetism and gravity. The result is a more holistic, interconnected view of the universe and its interactions, from the subatomic level on up through living beings to the planets, stars, and great streaming galaxies.
I think I'm going to move on soon.
The modern astrophysical concept that ascribes the sun's energy to the thermonuclear reactions deep in the solar interior is contradicted by nearly every observable aspect of the sun. That was published in 1980. When I read his paper, it just seemed so obvious to me that he was correct. And that was when I began to really try and understand the sun for myself. Ralph Jurgen certainly pointed the way and did a very thorough job. So, what is a star? An undergraduate textbook on the structure and evolution of stars makes a star seem a very simple object. And I quote, "A star can be defined as a body that satisfies two conditions. A, it is bound by self-gravity, and B, it radiates energy supplied by an internal source." Behind this definition are some critical assumptions that Sir Arthur Eddington bequeathed to us long before the space age in his 1926 opus, The Internal Constitution of the Stars. But how many students now read Eddington's original work with a critical eye? Indeed, how many read him at all? Here's Sir Arthur Eddington. Eddington wrote, "The problem of the source of a star's energy will be considered. By a process of exhaustion, we are driven to conclude that the only possible source of a star's energy is subatomic," because at this stage it had been discovered, nuclear energy had been discovered. He said, "Yet it must be confessed that the hypothesis shows little disposition to accommodate itself to the detailed requirements of observation, and a critic might count up a large number of fatal objections." End of quote. A single fatal objection would suffice to falsify the hypothesis, but the apparent isolation of stars in the vacuum of space encouraged the belief that stars must consume themselves to fuel their own fires, rather like a campfire in the sky, only a modern version. The fatal objections would be sorted out later. Two such objections are behind NASA's plan to launch a mission to the Sun called Solar Probe Plus in 2018, with first close approach in December 2024. And I hope I'm about to report on that. NASA says the mission's primary scientific goal is to understand how the Sun's corona is heated and how the solar wind is accelerated. Solar Probe Plus will revolutionise our knowledge of the origin and evolution of the solar wind. That's the end of the quote. That will follow 92 years of denial that there is a serious problem with our understanding of our nearest star. Neither of these features are predicted by the standard solar model. Eddington argued the need for a central fire as follows. No source of energy is of any avail unless it liberates energy in the deep interior of the star. It is not enough to provide for the external radiation of the star. We must provide for the maintenance of the high internal temperature without which the star would collapse. This is the rationale for having a high energy, high temperature core in a star. But this assumes that a star is basically a ball of hot gas obeying gravity and the standard laboratory gas laws. Eddington's logic of exhaustion had to set aside facts that didn't fit the only possible theory. Appearances can be deceptive when viewed through the lens of a single idea. A kind of tunnel vision develops that accommodates fatal objections with the excuse that someday we will find the answers, just give me more money. To compensate for the weakness of the excuse, those who adopt the consensus view acquire a kind of evangelical zeal, which you can see anytime you see these interviews with astrophysicists. For example, the undergraduate textbook referred to in the last slide opens with, "The theory of stellar structure and evolution is elegant and impressively powerful." Yet we have recently discovered stars that shouldn't exist. In one instance, the star is too huge to be inflated by a central fire. Tunnel vision does more than magnify the elegance of the
electric sun hypothesis. The basics. In this day and age, there is no longer any doubt that electric effects in plasmas play an important role in the phenomena we observe on the sun. The major properties of the electric sun, ES model, are as follows. Most of the space within our galaxy is occupied by plasma, rarefied ionized gas, containing electrons, negative charges, and ionized atoms, positive charges. Every charged particle in the plasma has an electric potential energy, voltage. just as every pebble on a mountain has a mechanical potential energy with respect to sea level. The Sun is at the center of a plasma cell, called the heliosphere, that stretches far out, several times the radius of Pluto. As of 9/9/2012, the radius of this plasma cell has been measured to be greater than 18 billion kilometers, or 122 times the distance from the Sun to Earth. These are facts, not hypotheses. The Sun is at a more positive electrical potential, voltage, than is the space plasma surrounding it, probably in the order of several thousand volts.
Positive ions leave the Sun. Electrons enter the Sun. Both of these flows add to form a net positive current flowing through the Sun, entering at the poles and leaving radially at lower latitudes.
This constitutes a plasma discharge, analogous in every way, except size, to those that have been observed in electrical plasma laboratories for decades. Because of the Sun's positive charge, voltage, it acts as the anode in a plasma discharge. As such, it exhibits many of the phenomena observed in earthbound plasma laboratory experiments. The Sun may be powered not from within itself, but from outside, by the electric Birkeland currents that flow in our arm of our galaxy, as they do in all galaxies. This possibility that the Sun may be externally powered by its galactic environment is the most speculative idea in the ES hypothesis, and is always attacked by critics, while they completely ignore all the other obvious properties of the ES model. In the plasma universe is high. An electrically powered Sun's radiated power would be due to the energy delivered by that amperage. As it travels around the galactic center, the Sun may come into regions of higher or lower current density, and so its output may vary, both periodically and randomly.
The corona. The Sun's corona is visible only during solar eclipses or via sophisticated instruments developed for that specific purpose. It is a vast, luminous plasma globe that changes shape with time, always remaining fairly smooth and distributed in its inner regions, and showing filamentary spikes and points in its outer fringes. It is a glow mode plasma discharge. If the Sun were not electrical in nature, this corona would not exist. If the Sun is simply a non-electrical nuclear furnace, the corona has no business being there at all.
So one of the most basic questions that ought to arise in any discussion of the Sun is, why does our Sun have a corona? Why is it there? It serves no purpose in a fusion-only model, nor can such models explain its existence. The solar wind. Positive ions stream outward from the Sun's surface and accelerate away through the corona for as far as we have been able to measure. It is thought that these particles eventually make up a portion of the cosmic ray flux
that permeates the cosmos.
The wind varies with time and has even been observed to stop completely for a period of a day or two. What causes this fluctuation?
The ES model proposes a simple explanation and suggests a mechanism that both
creates and controls fluctuations in its flow.
The standard model provides no such explanation or mechanism.
See solar surface transistor action, electrical properties of the photosphere and the chromosphere. The essence of the electric sun hypothesis is a description of the electrical properties of its photosphere, chromosphere, and the resulting effects on the charged particles that move through those layers. The surface of the sun that we typically see from Earth is the photosphere, which is a brightly radiating layer of plasma only about 500 kilometers thick. It is analogous to the anode glow region of a laboratory gas discharge experiment, except that it is in arc mode. It consists of cells of plasma, sometimes called tufts or granules. Sunspots are areas where no such granules exist. The granules, observed on the surface of the photosphere, are in fairly turbulent motion. They change shape, size, and disappear in a matter of hours or days. New ones pop up in their place. The anode glow is often observed in the laboratory to consist of a pattern of small, rotating, regularly arranged spots whose speed of rotation is sometimes sufficiently slow to be followed by the unaided eye. The analogy between the laboratory gas discharge and the behavior of the sun is indeed a compelling one. The photosphere then is plasma in the arc mode. We say this because the sun emits power at a rate of over 63 million watts per square meter from its photospheric surface. This is equivalent to a power output of 40 kilowatts from each square inch of that surface. Some have questioned whether the photosphere's relatively low temperature, about 5,800 Kelvin, disqualifies it from being in arc mode. In 1944, C.E.R. Bruce of England's Electrical Research Institute proposed that the photosphere has the appearance, the temperature, and the spectrum of an electric arc. It has arc characteristics because it is an electric arc, or a large number of arcs in parallel, and it is difficult to imagine a plasma discharge in anything other than arc mode that could radiate 40 kilowatts of power from each square inch of its surface area. A cross-section taken from a photospheric granule is shown in the three plots shown together below in Figure 1. The horizontal axis is distance, measured radially outward, upward, starting at a point near the bottom of the photosphere, the true surface of the sun, which we can only observe in the umbra of sunspots. Almost every observed property of the sun can be explained through reference to these three plots. For this reason, much of the discussion that follows makes reference to them. The first plot shows the energy per unit positive charge of an ion as a function of its distance out from, altitude up from, the solar surface. The units of energy per unit charge are volts, V. The second plot, the E field, shows the outward-upward radial force toward the right in this figure, experienced by each such positive ion. The third plot shows the locations of the charge densities that will produce the first two plots. The chromosphere is the location of a plasma double layer, DL, of electrical charge. Recall that one of the properties of electric plasma is its excellent, although not perfect, conductivity. Such an excellent conductor will support only a weak electric field. Notice in the second plot that the almost ideal plasmas of the photosphere, region B to C, and the corona from point E outward are regions of almost zero electric field strength. End of part 1. When we consider the sun, however, spherical geometry exists, with the sun at the center. Cross-section becomes an imaginary sphere. Assume a constant total electron drift moving from all directions toward the sun, and a constant
total radial flow of positive ions outward. Imagine a spherical surface of large radius through which this total current passes. As we approach the sun from deep space, this spherical surface has an ever-decreasing area. Therefore, for a fixed total current, the current density, A over m squared, increases as we move inward toward the sun. The anode surface of the sun is a tiny fraction of the area of the virtual cathode, the area of the heliopause. According to the latest measurements, the surface area of the heliopause is 653 million times larger than the surface area of the sun. Thus, current density at the sun's surface will be 653 million times what it is at the heliopause cathode. In deep space, say just inside the heliopause, the current density there is extremely low, even though the current may be huge. We are in the dark current region. There are no glowing gases. Nothing to tell us we are in a plasma discharge, except possibly some radio frequency emissions. We get closer to the sun, the spherical boundary has a smaller, decreasing surface area. The current density increases. We enter the normal glow region. This is what we call the sun's outer corona. The intensity of the radiated light is much like a neon sign. The volt-ampere plot has negative slope, and so filaments form. Filaments are often clearly observed in the outer corona. Those filaments may indeed be Berkeley currents. As we approach still closer to the sun, the spherical boundary gets to be only slightly larger of the radiated light. It is much like an arc welding machine or a motion picture projector. A high-intensity ultraviolet light is emitted. It is well known that if the anode in a discharge is much smaller than the cathode, and the photosphere exists on the sun, the boundary between the corona, glow mode, plasma, and the photosphere, arc mode, is a double layer, DL. This phenomenon is often observed in laboratory plasma experiments. Some early plasma researchers and most modern astronomers believe that the only true plasma is one that is perfectly conductive and so will freeze magnetic fields into itself. This is the erroneous theoretical basis of magnetic reconnection. The volt-ampere plot shown above indicates that this does not happen. Every point on the plot, except the origin, obviously the static resistivity of a plasma in the high zero static resistivity, it has a non-zero static resistivity. It takes a non-zero E field to produce the current density. Obviously, the static resistivity of a plasma in the high end of the dark mode can be quite large. The arc region and the left half of the glow region exhibit negative dynamic resistance, and the E field can be quite small. But that is not what is in question. No real plasma can freeze in a magnetic field. The highest conductivity plasmas are those in the arc mode. But even in that mode, it takes a finite non-zero valued electric field to produce current density. No plasma is an ideal superconductor. Figure 1 energy, electric field strength, and charge density as a function of radial distance from the sun's surface. The energy plot shown above in the photo is valid for positively charged particles because a positive E field represents an outward radial force toward the right per unit charge on any such particle. The region wherein the E field is negative, A to B, constitutes an inward force. This region of the lower photosphere is thus an energy barrier that positive ions must surmount in order to escape the body of the sun. Any ions attempting to escape outward from within the sun must have enough energy to get over this energy barrier. So the presence of this single positive charge layer at the bottom of the photospheric plasma serves as a constraint on unlimited escape of ions on the surface of the sun, granule shrinkage and movement. In order to visualize the effect this energy diagram has on electron, negative charges coming in toward the sun from cosmic space from the right, we can turn the energy plot upside down. Doing this enables us to visualize the trap that these photospheric granules are for incoming electrons. As the trap fills, the energy of the granule existing between B and C decreases in height, and so the granule weakens, shrinks, and eventually disappears. This is the cause of the observed shrinkage and disappearance of the photospheric granule. Temperature minimum. If the standard model were correct, heat and light would simply radiate away from the photosphere as from a hot stove. Temperature measurements would monotonically decrease with distance. But many processes, other than simple radiation of heat, are occurring above the photosphere. A temperature minimum of about 4100 Kelvin occurs just above the photosphere, the lower region of the sun's corona. At much higher altitude are millions of degrees hotter than the surface of the sun itself. How can this be? The standard model has no satisfactory explanation. The electric sun hypothesis explains it clearly as follows. Charged particles do not experience external electrostatic forces when they are in the range B to C within the photosphere. Only random thermal movement occurs due to diffusion. Temperature is simply the measurement of the violence of such random movement. This is where the about 6,000 Kelvin photospheric temperature is measured. Positive ions have their maximum electrical potential energy when they are in this photospheric granule plasma. But their mechanical kinetic energy is relatively low. At a point just to the left of point C, any random movement toward the right, radially upward, that carries a positive ion, even slightly beyond point C, will result in its being swept away down the energy hill, out of the sun. Such movement of charged particles due to an E field is called a drift current. This drift current of accelerating positive ions is a constituent of the solar wind, which is a serious misnomer. As positive ions begin to accelerate down the potential energy drop from point C through point E, they convert the high electrical potential energy they had in the photosphere into kinetic energy. They gain extremely high outward radial velocity and lose side-to-side random motion. Thus, they become dethermalized. In this region, in the upper photosphere and the chromosphere, the movement of these ions becomes extremely organized, parallel. Therefore, an observed temperature minimum occurs here. The transition zone. Rapidly moving positive ions past point E, they leave the chromosphere. They move beyond the radial outward directed E field force that has been accelerating them. Because of their high kinetic energy velocity, any collisions they have at this point with other ions or neutral atoms are violent and create high amplitude random motion, thereby rethermalizing the plasma to a much greater degree than it was in the photospheric granule.
20 minutes.
This is what is responsible for the high temperature we observe in the lower corona. Ions just to the right of point E are reported to be at temperatures of 1 to 2 million Kelvin. Nothing else but exactly this kind of mechanism could be expected
from the electric sun photospheric double-layer model. The rethermalization takes place in a region analogous to the turbulent white water boiling at the bottom of a smooth laminar water slide. In the fusion model, no such accelerating water slide mechanism exists, and so neither does a simple explanation of the temperature discontinuity. Cosmic rays. The particles in our solar wind eventually join with the spent solar winds of all the other stars in our galaxy to make up the total cosmic ray flux in our arm of the galaxy. Jurgens points out that the sun is a rather mediocre star as far as radiating energy goes. If it is electrically powered, perhaps its mediocrity is attributed to a relatively unimpressive driving potential. This would mean that hotter, more luminous stars should have driving potentials greater than that of the sun, and should consequently expel cosmic rays of greater energies than solar cosmic rays. A star with a driving potential of 20 billion volts would expel protons energetic enough to reach the sun's surface, consequently expel cosmic rays of greater energies than solar cosmic rays, arriving with 10 billion electron volts of energy to spare. Such cosmic ions, when they collide with Earth's upper atmosphere, release the muon neutrinos.
Muon neutrinos.
That have been in the news recently. Hans Elfane, in his book, The New Astronomy, Chapter 2, Section 3, page 74 to 79, said about cosmic rays, how these particles are driven to their fantastic energies, sometimes as high as 1,000,000 billion electron volts, is one of the prime puzzles of astronomy. No known, or even unknown, nuclear reaction could account for the firing of particles of such energies. Even the complete annihilation of a proton would not yield more than 1 billion electron volts. Fluctuations in the solar wind. It is interesting to note in passing that the 3 plots presented in Figure 1 are identically the plots of energy, E-field, and charge distribution found in a junction transistor. Of course, in that solid-state device, there are different processes going on at different energy levels. Valence band and conduction band. Within a solid crystal, in the solar plasma, there are no fixed atomic centers, and so there is only one energy band. In a transistor, the amplitude of the collector current, analogous to the drift of positive ions in the solar wind toward the right, is easily controlled by raising and lowering the difference between the base and emitter voltages. Is the same mechanism a voltage fluctuation between the anode sun and its photosphere granules at work in the sun? E.g., if the sun's voltage were to decrease slightly, say because of an excessive flow of outgoing positive ions, negative, the voltage rise from point A to point B in the energy diagram would increase in height and so reduce the solar wind, both the inward electron flow and the outward positive ion flow, in a compensating negative feedback effect. In May of 1999, the solar wind completely cut off for about 2 days. There are also periodic variations in the solar wind. The transistor-like mechanism described above is certainly capable of causing these phenomena. The fusion model is at a complete loss to explain them, whereas transistor cutoff is well-known electronic mechanism that is used in all digital circuits. Characteristic modes of plasma. In the page on electric plasma on this website, the 3 characteristic static modes in which a plasma can operate are discussed. Here is a somewhat more exact description. We need this to explain the detailed properties we observe on the sun's surface. The static volt-ampere characteristic of a typical laboratory plasma discharge inside A cylindrical chamber has the shape shown below in the current picture. So the sun acts like a transistor. That's interesting. And crystals are in transistors. Fusion in the double layer. The Z-pinch effect of high-intensity parallel current filaments in an arc plasma is very strong. Whatever nuclear fusion is taking place on the sun is probably occurring here in the double layer, DL, at the top of the photosphere, not deep within the core. The result of this fusion process are the metals that give rise to absorption lines in the sun's spectrum. Traces of 68 of the 92 natural elements are found in the sun's atmosphere. Most of the radio frequency noise emitted by the sun emanates from this region. Radio noise is a well-known property of double layers. The electrical power available to be delivered to the plasma at any point is the product of the E field, V over M, times current density, A over M to the second. This multiplication operation yields watts per cubic meter power density. The current density is relatively constant over the height of the photospheric chromospheric layers. However, the E field is at its strongest at the center of the double layer. Present thinking is that nuclear fusion takes a great deal of power. If that is so, then the power is available in the double layer. It has reportedly been observed the neutrino flux from the sun varies inversely with sunspot number. This is expected in the ES hypothesis because the source of those neutrinos is probably Z-pinch produced fusion, which is occurring in the double layer. And sunspots are locations where there is no double layer in which this process can occur. The greater the number of sunspots, the fewer the number of observed solar neutrinos, sunspots. In the plasma of the photosphere, both the dimensions of and the voltage within the granules depend on the current density at that location near the sun's anode surface. The existence of the double layer of electric charge associated with each granule separating it from the corona plasma above it requires a certain numerical relationship between positive ion and electron numbers in the total current. This required ratio of electron to ion motion was discovered, quantified, and reported by Irving Langmuir over 50 years ago. Spicules, tall jets of electrons that emanate from the boundaries between the granules, supply many of those needed electrons. In this electric sun model, as with any plasma discharge, the granular cells disappear wherever the flux of incoming electrons impinging into a given area of the sun's anode surface is not sufficiently strong to require the augmentation of anode size they provide. At any such location, the photospheric cells collapse, as we can see down the actual anode surface of the sun. Since there is no arc mode plasma discharge occurring in these locations, they appear darker than the surrounding area and are termed sunspot umbrae. Of course, if a tremendous amount of energy were actually being produced in the sun's interior, these umbrae should be brighter and hotter than the surrounding photosphere. The fact that sunspot umbrae are dark and relatively cool, 3 to 4,000 Kelvin or 2727 to 4227 Celsius, strongly supports the condition that very little, if anything, in the way of heat production is going on in the sun's interior. Sun, Part 3. Figure 3, a sunspot showing the umbra, penumbra, and surrounding granular cells.
The top plot in Figure 1 shows the electrical potential energy of a positive ion in the Sun's atmosphere. This diagram is expanded and reproduced below in Figure 4 and is relabeled to show the energies, voltage levels, at different locations in the vicinity of a sunspot. In Figure 3, normal bright yellow arc mode solar granules appear around the periphery of a typical sunspot. They are at voltage level 1/2 in Figure 4. Typically, in these normal granules, positive ions flow upward, directly out toward the viewer in Figure 3. In Figure 4, such ions have enough energy to make the journey from the interior of the Sun, left of the origin, marked as A on the horizontal axis, up over the voltage rise from A to B. They diffuse across the region B to C and fall down the potential hill from C to E. At this point, these rapidly moving ions create the turbulence observed as the high 2 million Kelvin temperatures seen in the lower corona. In Figure 3, this journey takes such an ion up out of the Sun's interior, up through a granule, and accelerates it out vertically upward. These ions then continue outward as the major constituent of what is called the solar wind. We must be aware of what Figure 4 represents. The black locus indicates a voltage A positive ion would experience along its journey upward out of the Sun's body through the photospheric granule and upward into the lower corona. Penumbral filaments. But what about the penumbra, those strangely shaped plasma filament cells surrounding the umbra that remind us of the iris of a human eye? Starting just inside the Sun's body, some ions have barely enough kinetic energy to leave the body of the Sun by rising up to voltage level V2 or greater. In the altitude range B to C in Figure 4, where they are diffusing upward, some of these ions may collide with other ions or neutral atoms, and some of them may be given a diffusion velocity that bounces them back downward toward the left in Figure 4. If they diffuse in the direction beyond point B, they will be attracted back down into the Sun. In 3D space, they may just sink out the bottom of the granule or fall off its side into the darker channels that surround each granule. Or if they are close enough to the edge of a sunspot, they may fall into it. That is what we are seeing in the penumbral filaments shown in Figures 3 and 5. The process is analogous to icebergs calving off from glaciers to which they have been attached. The tops of the granules near the umbra's edge peel off, bend downward toward the umbra, and fall toward the lower voltage and lower altitude surface of the Sun, visible in the umbra. Yeah, it's interesting. The interior of the Sun is obviously rocky. Prominences, flares, and CMEs. All of the above discussion applies to the steady state or almost steady state operation of the electric sun. There are several dynamic phenomena such as flares, prominences, and coronal mass ejections, CMEs, that we observe. How are they produced? Nobel laureate Hans Alfvén, although not aware of the Jurgen's electric sun model, advanced his own theory of how prominences and solar flares are formed electrically. It is completely consistent with the Jurgen's model. Any electric current, I, creates a magnetic field. The stronger the current, the stronger the magnetic field, and the more energy it contains. Curved magnetic fields cannot exist without either electrical currents or time-varying electric fields. Energy, Wm, stored in any magnetic field is given by the expression Wm equals
1/2 Li squared.
1/2 Li squared. If the current I is interpreted, the field collapses and its energy must be delivered somewhere. The magnetic field of the Sun sometimes, and in some places on its surface, forms an omega-shaped loop. This loop extends out through the double sheath layer, DL, of the chromosphere. I need a drink of water. One of the primary properties of Birkeland currents is that they generally follow magnetic field lines. A strong looping current will produce a secondary toroidal magnetic field that will surround and try to expand the loop. If the current following the loop becomes too strong, the double layer will be destroyed. This interrupts the current, like opening the switch in an inductive circuit.
and the energy stored in the primary magnetic field is explosively released into space. It should be well understood, certainly by anyone who has had a basic physics course, that the magnetic field lines that are drawn to describe a magnetic field have no beginning nor end. They are closed paths. In fact, one of Maxwell's famous equation is
DIVB equals 0.
DIVB equals 0, which says exactly that in the language of vector differential calculus. So when magnetic fields collapse due to the interruption of the currents, they produce them. They do not break or merge or recombine, as some uninformed astronomers have postulated. The field simply collapses very quickly on the sun. This collapse can release a tremendous amount of energy, and matter is thrown away from the surface. As with any explosively rapid reaction, this release is consistent with and predicted by the electric sun model as described above. That is how coronal mass ejections, CMEs, occur. Note that although astronomers ought to be aware that magnetic fields require electrical currents, or time-varying E-fields, to produce them, currents and E-fields are almost never mentioned in standard models. Conclusion. This rather lengthy page has actually been the briefest of introductions to Juergen's electric sun model. The realization that our sun functions electrically, that it is a huge electrically charged, relatively quiescent sphere of ionized gas that supports an electric plasma arc discharge on its surface, and is probably powered by subtle currents that move throughout the now well-known tenuous plasma that fills our galaxy. A more detailed description of the ES hypothesis, as well as the deficiencies of the standard solar fusion model, are presented in The Electric Sky. Today's orthodox thermonuclear model fails to explain many observed solar phenomena. The electric sun model is inherently predictive of most, if not all, these observed phenomena. It is relatively simple, it is self-consistent, and it does not require the existence of mysterious entities such as the unseen solar dynamo genie that lurks somewhere beneath the surface of the fusion model and serves as a fallback explanation for all observations that are inconvenient for the accepted fusion model. Ralph Juergens had the genius to develop the electric sun model back in the 1970s. He based it on the work of others who went before him. His hypothesis and modern extensions of it have so far passed the harsh test of observed reality. They have passed several tests to which the Sapphire Laboratory team have subjected it. This seminal work may eventually get the recognition it deserves, or, of course, others may try to claim it or parts of it and hope the world forgets who came up with these ideas first. There is now enough inescapable evidence that a majority of the phenomena we observe on the sun are fundamentally electric in nature. Ralph Juergens had the vision to recognize that. Don Scott.
Well, that's where I'm going to stop tonight. It's a short one for me, but I could do this all night, but right now I'm just tired. I had treatment today, and I'm going to get some sleep. I'll be back, though. I have a couple of shows prepared, one with Andy, and a new talk with Ted, and that's going to be fun. I have to put video to it, though. And we're always chatting it up in the mornings now. That's when I can get a hold of everybody. And we're going to have Nato back. And I just want to tell you that I appreciate every single one of you. And I know my viewership is down, but, I haven't exactly been shining on the spot lately. But God bless you too. you guys understand and you don't complain. And, you know, we're going to get this show back on the road. But what did you think of the Vince Everett Ellison video? That was just, wow. You know, there is a force in this country with billions of dollars, many forces, that want to bring America down. And we just can't do that. And I just don't understand why. I mean, we're broke. We're $37 billion, trillion in the hole. But we give other countries billions. We gave Argentina $40 billion. But we can't afford to put $4 billion to cover food stamps for hungry families in the U.S. I don't know what's going on. And, you know, something has to change. The Democratic Party just rants and raves racist diatribes. And that's just don't get it anymore. It used to be that we couldn't say anything. But that's changing. I mean, free speech is the First Amendment. And they're trying to say, well, some speech is hate speech. Well, maybe that's true, but we have free speech, and that's going to come with it. You know, there are so many other things out there that are elegant. What matters most to me is the truth. I mean, when Candace Owens says everything is fake and gay, she's right. I mean, everything is a cover story. Astronomy, geology, what's happening in the world. But now, thanks to the internet, we can become more educated in what's really happening. The mainstream media has been in the pocket of billionaires since JFK was slaughtered. And that's just a sad truth. That's why that assassination interests me so much, because the country took a wild left turn. And we gotta save our country. There's nothing wrong with being a sovereign country. It's not racist at all. The Americans need the attention, the people, the constituents, not foreign countries. You know, and I could go on and on and on. But I'm going to drop a video soon with the Vince video and some others by other pundits that will make a lot of sense. That'll be coming in a few days. I'm going to do my best to stay with you every week. And, you know, I'm going to try not to falter. I love you guys so much. Hey, Bass, what's up? It's good to see you. You too, Robert. Esoteric Gold. Good to see you, Keith Johnson. Ray Carr, Ray. He's been with me for a long time. No soup for you. I like that. Jay Fox. Ronald. I don't want to leave anybody out. See you, Colonels. Thank you. Valerie. Great job. Jamalama. Strange Days. JK. And let's see who else do we got here. And that's about it. And I already got somebody on earlier that called me a grifter. Oh my goodness. All my videos are free. I rely on donations, which I don't get that many. I have 2 wonderful patrons that have stuck with me since the beginning. And, you know, they're angels from heaven as far as I'm concerned. And, you know, I can't say enough about them. And I can't say enough about you guys for sticking with me and staying a viewer. We'll build it back up. You know YouTube is sitting on me. I'm not going to be able to grow, but you know, it's okay. I still have a great time with you. And you guys are smart. I learn a lot from you. I love your comments. I try to get to every one of them. I miss a few, I'm sorry. But, you know, I think we have a cool little club here. And I wouldn't miss it for the world. Robert Malek, 8327, Texas Vintage Depot. I'll get better. Better days are coming. My mom used to always say that, and she was always right. So, take care. God bless you. I love you. Be safe out there. And I'll see you next week. And look for a new video to drop sometime in the middle of the week. Alright? Good night. Take care. I'll see you down the road. You want to end with a song? We'll end with a song. Shockwave told me he wanted me to start doing music videos again. I didn't think anyone was interested. But if, you know, a few of you like it, that's okay with me, because I love music. Alright, I'll close out with a song, and God bless you.